continuing with Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. That's right, we were hearing from this purport from the Govinda Bhashya. And we are still in chapter 6 of the Adi Lila, the glories of Sri Advaita Acharya. And so Swami Maharaj has this purport here where he's discussing this point of understanding the relationship, right, between the different elements and the creation and what is the actual source, right, that conscious source, the living force, that the living force is the source of the material, elements, not the other way around. And so we have this purport in Baladeva Vijayabhushan. We wanted to hear from an excerpt. Swami Maharaj is included. Dasa Vrindavanam Vande Krishna Dasa Prabhum Tata Chanavatar Chaitanya Lila Vishtar Kadino Bhyo Nityananda Parabja Karunarena Bhushito Vyakta Burachincho Vavande Vyasarupino Shri Guru Gaur Gandharva Govindascha Ganaisaha Jayanti Patakascha Sarvesham Gurunartino. Okay, so we're continuing. The great Vaishnava philosopher Srila Baladeva Vijayabhushan has very nicely explained the materialistic conclusion in his Govinda Bhashya on the Vedanta Sutra. He writes as follows, and the day before, we had a lot of discussion on that, right, the history of the Govinda Bhashya. He writes as follows: the Sankhya philosopher Kapila has connected the different elementary truths according to his own opinion. Material nature, according to him, consists of the equilibrium of the three material qualities, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Material nature produced the material energy, known as Mahat, and Mahat produced the false ego. The ego produced the 5 objects of sense perception, which produced the 10 senses, 5 for acquiring knowledge and 5 for working, the mind and the 5 gross elements. Counting the Purusha, or the enjoyer, with these 24 elements, there are 25 different truths. The non-manifested stage of these 25 elementary truths is called Prakriti, or material nature. The qualities of material nature can associate in 3 different stages, namely as the cause of happiness, the cause of distress, and the cause of illusion. The quality of goodness is the cause of material happiness. The quality of passion is the cause of material distress. And the quality of ignorance is the cause of illusion. And there's also that, this reminds us of that verse in Bhagavad Gita, right, saying that happiness in the mode of ignorance, it may start out like uncomfortable, painful, but in the end it leads to joy. But happiness in the mode of passion, in the beginning it is happy, in the beginning it is joyful, but in the end it leads to unhappiness, distress, right? Because the mode of passion, it's based upon the experience of the senses, right? And so if we're going for instant gratification, then it's like fast food, right? And in the first moment it's very nice, but then later you have to pay the consequences, right? But then in the mode of goodness, it is the opposite. It may not be so tasty in the first moment to the tongue and the senses, but later on, then you feel the benefit, right? And it is a long-term, sustainable, more fulfilling type of happiness, ultimately.
And happiness in the mode of ignorance?
That is just illusion, beginning, middle, and end.
It's all illusion.
That's true. Yeah, just different degrees, right? Different degrees of illusion. I really like that analogy that's given in Gita. I find it so helpful of the mode of ignorance is compared to like smoke that is covering the fire. And then the mode of passion is compared to dust on a mirror. And then the mode of ignorance is compared to the embryo in the womb, right? In other words, when you're in the mode of ignorance, your spiritual nature is thickly covered, just like the embryo in the womb is very heavily covered, right? Then the mode of passion, the dust on the mirror, it's still dense, but it's still a little closer, right? But then the mode of goodness, it's like that smoke where you're getting some glimpse of that spiritual nature coming through, right? But yes, it is a light. It's like illusion light, Maya light, but it's still Maya ultimately. Our material experience lies within the boundaries of these three manifestations of happiness, distress, and illusion. For example, a beautiful woman is certainly a cause of material happiness for one who possesses her as a wife, but the same beautiful woman is a cause of distress to a man whom she rejects or who is the cause of her anger. And if she leaves a man, she becomes the cause of illusion. The two kinds of senses are the 10 external senses and the one internal sense, the mind. Thus there are 11 senses. So normally we hear 5 senses, right? But I'm not sure if I've seen that list of the...
25 in total.
Right. I guess in Bhagavad Gita it must be listed.
No.
Yeah, not, huh? I guess it's in some writings of Kapila Dev. Srimad Bhagavatam, right? More refined, right? According to Kapila, material nature is eternal and all-powerful. Originally, there is no spirit and matter has no cause. So it's a little confusing because we hear that there are 2 Kapila Devs, right? We hear there's the Kapila Dev who was an avatar of the Lord, and he comes with a theistic Sankhya. But then we hear, and that's who's being referred to here, there's another Kapila who's promoting a more atheistic type of Sankhya philosophy. Matter itself is the chief cause of everything. It is the all-pervading cause of all causes. The Sankhya philosophy, this is according to Kapila Dev. The Sankhya philosophy regards the total energy, Mahat Tattva, the false ego, and the 5 objects of sense perception as the 7 diverse manifestations of material nature, which has 2 features, known as the material cause and the efficient cause. The Purusha, the enjoyer, is without transformation, whereas material nature is always subject to transformation. But although material nature is inert, it is the cause of enjoyment and salvation for many living creatures. Its activities are beyond the conception of sense perception, but still one may guess at them by superior intelligence. Material nature is one, but because of the interaction of the 3 qualities, it can produce the total energy and the wonderful cosmic manifestation. Such transformations divide material nature into 2 features, namely the efficient and the material causes. The Purusha, the enjoyer, is inactive and without material qualities, although at the same time he is the master, existing separately in each and every body as the emblem of knowledge. By understanding the material cause, one can guess that the Purusha, the enjoyer, being without activity, is aloof from all kinds of enjoyment or superintendence. Sankhya philosophy, after describing the nature of Prakriti, material nature, and Purusha, the enjoyer, asserts that the creation is only a product of their unification or proximity to one another. Within such unification, the living symptoms are visible in material nature, but one can guess that in the person of the enjoyer, Purusha, there are powers of control and enjoyment. When the Purusha is illusioned for want of sufficient knowledge, he feels himself to be the enjoyer. And when he is in full knowledge, he is liberated. In the Sankhya philosophy, the Purusha is described to be always indifferent to the activities of Prakriti. The Sankhya philosopher accepts three kinds of evidences, namely direct perception, hypothesis, and traditional authority. So this is something that is discussed in different sections of the Vedas and by different philosophers at what this point. And I guess is this part of what people call epistemology? I've never quite understood that. But what I mean to say is reliable means by which one acquires knowledge, right? And I think there are 10 main ones which are discussed in the scriptures, and then there are different schools of thought that accept some and others that accept others, right? And so it's saying the Sankhya philosopher accepts these three: direct perception through the experience of the senses, hypothesis, which I think is I think the Sanskrit is anuman, which can also be rendered as like logic, like, you know, so like the example is often given that you see smoke coming from behind a hill, so you can conclude there's fire behind, right? So you cannot directly perceive the fire, but you can logically conclude, right? There must be a fire going on, right? And so, for example, another way that can be applied is that, you know, we cannot see. Of course, this would be the Vaishnava way to conclude that. We can see there's, you know, this beautiful creation, the order, the harmony, the perfection of things, the sophistication of all the different system in this the natural world. So we can conclude there must be a conscious creator, right? Although we cannot see with our limited senses, you know, that creator, we can logically conclude. It just makes sense, right? And then direct perception obviously is what you perceive yourself. Hypothesis, and then traditional authority. Now this is interesting because in our so Jiva Goswami in his writings he stated what we accept as bona fide types of evidence, and so Jiva Goswami doesn't accept this traditional authority because your traditional authority could be wrong, right? It's like for example, if someone has some tradition that they follow, why do you do it? Just because it's always been done. That doesn't necessarily mean it's right? And so we in our group, or Jiva Goswami's group, we can say, this direct perception, the evidence of the direct senses, that has some value. And then hypothesis or logic, that also has some value. And then the main one is Shabda, which means like the revealed truth, right? The truth that is coming from a higher source, which traditionally will be considered to be represented in the scripture, right? But we could also say what the living saint is concluding, right? And so those in the Vaishnava, the theistic slant, then we put emphasis on that, on the Shabda, divine knowledge, revealed knowledge, right? Amnaya. But then we see in the Sankhya philosophy of the atheistic slant, that's obviously not a factor, right? And then there are others too. I think there's, as I mentioned, there's 10 which are discussed, right? And I think those three are the main ones accepted by Jiva Goswami. Maybe there's a fourth one. When such evidence is complete, everything is perfect. The process of comparison is within such perfection. Beyond such evidence, there is no truth. There is not much controversy regarding direct perceptional evidence or authorized traditional evidence. The Sankhya system of philosophy identifies three kinds of procedures: parimanat, transformation; samanvayat, adjustment, and shaktitaha, performance of energies as the causes of the cosmic manifestation. So, going super technical here, I don't understand. Okay, so that's the end of that quote from Baladev Vidyabhushan. So we're doing some brain training this morning. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan, in his commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, has tried to nullify this conclusion because he thinks that discrediting these so-called causes of the cosmic manifestation will nullify the entire Sankhya philosophy. Materialistic philosophers accept matter to be the material and efficient cause of creation. For them, matter is the cause of every type of manifestation. So this is also like, you could say, the Big Bang Theory is in line with this idea, right? Just through some random combination of material elements, the creation was produced, including the living force, right? Which to us just sounds ridiculous. Generally, they give the example of a water pot and clay. Clay is the cause of the water pot, but the clay can be found as both cause and effect. The water pot is the effect, and the clay itself is the cause, but clay is visible everywhere. A tree is matter, but a tree produces fruit. Water is matter, but water flows. In this way, say the Sankhites, matter is the cause of movements and production. As such, matter can be considered the material and efficient cause of everything in the cosmic manifestation. Srila Baladev Vidyabhushan has therefore enunciated the nature of pradhan as follows. So pradhan is referring to the material elements, right? Now we have another quote from Baladev Vidyabhushan. Material nature is inert, and as such it cannot be the cause of matter, neither as the material nor as the efficient cause. Seeing the wonderful arrangement and management of the cosmic manifestation generally suggests that a living brain is behind this arrangement. For without a living brain, such an arrangement could not exist. One should not imagine that such an arrangement can exist without conscious direction. In our practical experience, we never see that inert bricks can themselves construct a big building. Oh, so this is Baladev Vidyabhushan. So he has a sense of humor. He has a sense of humor. Actually, I remember now, I think it's Baladev Vidyabhushan that I have these commentaries on Bhagavad Gita someone gave me, and I went through it once some years ago, and there's one, I can't remember, I think it was Baladev Vidyabhushan though, because I have Baladev's and also Vishwanath's commentary. But I think it was Baladev, he gave this very funny analogy for a verse in Bhagavad Gita, and he gave this, I think it was that verse, Yanisha Sarvabhutanam, where it's saying that the enlightened soul sees, the plane of spirit as they are awake in the plane of spirit, right? And the plane of the senses is like night to them. And then for the conditioned soul is the opposite. They're awake in the famous verse. They're awake in the world of the senses, and they're asleep to the world of the spirit. And Baladev Vidyabhushan, he gives this really funny analogy, and I can't remember exactly how it applies, but of a dancing girl who's holding water pots on her as she's dancing. She's like balancing water pots on her head while she's dancing, and I don't know what was the connection. I can't remember. It was very funny. Maybe like this type of focus, right? Because you got to have a lot of focus if you're dancing with a water pot on your head. So I think that might have been the connection, something like that. Very funny. In our practical experience, we never see that inert bricks can themselves construct a big building. The example of the water pot cannot be accepted because a water pot has no perception of pleasure and distress. And we can also say beauty, right? Aesthetics. The clay has no conception of aesthetics, right? To form that water pot, right? Or to build that building. That requires a conscious. I mean, it's so funny, this whole idea that people have. You know, like if you look at a beautiful flower, it's just so logical, you know. It's just like a type of it's a convenient self-delusion. That's what it comes down to, right?
The rain, the sun,
yes.
the whole planetary flow is so precise and amazing. Can't just come from the mind.
Yes.
But if you're so heavy in illusion, you cannot see the truth.
Actually, Krishna helps you to not see the truth, right? If that's what you want. He makes it easier for you, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about
because it comes down to what you want, actually.
Yeah. The desire is the sin.
Right. Like, Krishna wants persons to approach him out of love, not because, I'm forced to conclude that this is the only way. He doesn't want that. So you have to, really want that, and then the truth will be revealed, right?
And the ego is so in a way to cover it all.
The example of the water pot cannot be accepted because a water pot has no perception of pleasure and distress. Such perception is within. Therefore, the covering body or the water pot cannot be synchronized with it. Sometimes the material scientist suggests that trees grow from the earth automatically without assistance from a gardener, because that is a tendency of matter. They also consider the intuition of living creatures from birth to be material. But such material tendencies as bodily intuition cannot be accepted as independent, for they suggest the existence of a spirit soul within the body. Actually, the tree or the body of a living creature has no tendency or intuition. The tendency and intuition exist because the soul is present within the body. In this connection, the example of a car and driver may be given very profitably. The car has a tendency to turn right and left, but one cannot say that the car itself, as matter, turns right and left without the direction of a driver. A material car has neither tendencies nor intuitions independent of the intentions of the driver within the car. The same principle applies for the automatic growth of trees in the forest. The growth takes place because of the soul's presence within the tree. This is part of this quote from Baladevi Vibhushan, but it says, must have been another word. Swami Maharaj has translated as cars. They wouldn't have had cars at that time. So maybe Swami Maharaj has given a loose translation. Maybe he meant a cart or chariot or something. Sometimes foolish people take for granted that because scorpions are born from heaps of rice, the rice has produced the scorpions. The real fact, however, is that the mother scorpion lays eggs within the rice, and by the proper fermentation of the rice, the eggs give birth to several baby scorpions, which in due course come out. This does not mean that the rice gives birth to the scorpions. Similarly, sometimes bugs are seen to come from dirty beds. This does not mean, however, that the beds give birth to the bugs. It is a living soul that comes forth, taking advantage of the dirty condition of the bed. There are different kinds of living creatures. Some of them come from embryos, some from eggs, and some from the fermentation of perspiration. Different living creatures have different sources of appearance, but one should not conclude that matter produces such living creatures. The example cited by materialists that trees automatically come from the earth follows the same principle. Taking advantage of a certain condition, a living entity comes from the earth. According to the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, every living being is forced by divine superintendence to take a certain type of body according to his past misdeeds. To his past deeds, I threw in the misdeeds. According to his past deeds. There are many varieties of bodies, and because of a divine arrangement, a living entity takes bodies of different shapes. When a person thinks, I am doing this, the I am does not refer to the body. It refers to something more than the body or within the body. As such, the body as it is has neither tendencies nor intuition. The tendencies and intuition belong to the soul within the body. Material scientists sometimes suggest that the tendencies of male and female bodies cause their union, and that this is the cause of the birth of the child. But since the Purusha, according to Sankhya philosophy, is always unaffected, where does the tendency to give birth come from? Sometimes material scientists give the example that milk turns into curd automatically, and that distilled water pouring from the clouds falls down to the earth, produces different kinds of trees, and enters different kinds of flowers and fruits with different flavors and tastes. Therefore, they say, matter produces varieties of material things on its own. And we're still in this commentary about the Purusha. In reply to this argument, the same proposition of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, that different kinds of living creatures are put into different kinds of bodies by the management of a superior power, is repeated. Under superior superintendence, various souls, according to their past activities, are given the chance to take a particular type of body, such as that of a tree, animal, bird, or beast, and thus their different tendencies develop under these circumstances. Bhagavad Gita also further affirms, Purusha prakriti stohi punkte prakriti jangunan karanam guna sangosya sada sa yoni janmasu. The living entity in material nature follows the ways of life, enjoying the three modes of nature. This is due to his association with that material nature. Thus he meets with good and evil among various species. The soul is given different types of bodies. For example, were souls not given varieties of tree bodies, the different varieties of fruits and flowers could not be produced. Each class of trees produce a particular kind of fruit and flower. It is not that there is no distinction between the different classes. An individual tree does not produce flowers of different colors, nor fruits of different tastes. There are demarcated classes as we find them among humans, animals, birds, and other species. There are innumerable living entities, and their activities, performed in the material world according to the different qualities of the material modes of nature, give them the chance to have different kinds of life. Thus one should understand that pradhan, matter, cannot act unless impelled by a living creature. The materialistic theory that matter independently acts cannot therefore be accepted. Matter is called prakriti, which refers to female energy. A woman is prakriti, a female. A female cannot produce a child without the association of a Purusha, a man. The Purusha causes the birth of a child because the man injects the soul, which is sheltered in the semina, into the womb of the woman. The woman, as the material cause, supplies the body of the soul, and as the efficient cause, she gives birth to the child. But although the woman appears to be the material and efficient cause of the birth of a child, originally the Purusha, the male, is the cause of the child. Similarly, this material world gives rise to varieties of manifestations. due to the entrance of Garbhodakashaya Vishnu within the universe. He is present not only within the universe, but within the bodies of all living creatures, as well as within the atom. We understand from the Brahma Samhita that the Supersoul is present within the universe, within the atom, and within the heart of every living creature. Therefore, the theory that matter is the cause of the entire cosmic manifestation cannot be accepted by any man with sufficient knowledge of matter and spirit. Materialists sometimes give the argument that a straw eaten by a cow produces milk automatically, so material nature under different circumstances produces varieties of manifestations. Thus, originally, matter is the cause. In refuting this argument, we may say that an animal of the same species as the cow, namely the bull, also eats straw like the cow but does not produce milk. Under the circumstances, it cannot be said that straw in connection with the particular species produces milk. The conclusion should be, right, it's not just like a formula, right? 2 + 2 is 4. Right? The conclusion should be that there is superior management, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, where the Lord says, Maya Dyakshena Prakriti Suyate Sacharacharam. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. The Supreme Lord says, Maya Dyakshena, under my superintendence. When he desires that the cow produce milk by eating straw, there is milk. And when he does not so desire it, the mixture of such straw cannot produce milk. Just like if we eat straw, right, we don't produce milk. So there's some like sophisticated order and design, right, individuality. If the way of material nature had been that straw produced milk, a stack of straw could also produce milk. But that is not possible. And the same straw given to a human female also cannot produce milk. That is the meaning of Bhagavad Gita's statement that only under superior orders does anything take place. Matter itself has no power to produce independently. This is the point, right? Matter itself has no power to produce independently. So it's just very like simple examples. Like you gave me a blender, right, this morning, and you put things in the blender, right, and the blender will combine and mix everything and grind everything. But you need that person, right, to press the button. And then the machine's working in its own automatic way to produce specific results, right? But you require that conscious being before to press the button. And the thing is, you can't get away from that. You just can't. You can't get away from that.
I think it's so difficult to not believe that it's coming from the Atma.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult to...
Yeah.
Where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Some life force must be there.
That's the thing, right? If you have the eyes to see, it's so obvious, like the sun in front of you. It's like, how can you see anything else, right? But if you don't have the eyes to see, then you're just in darkness, right?
What do you think? Where does it come? How you can think? How you can speak? How you can dream?
Mm-hmm.
Walk? How do they explain? That is very... not very appealing, not very logical, not very...
Yeah, not logical and not appealing either.
No.
Right.
And not really nonsense, right?
Yes. Matter itself has no power to produce independently. The conclusion, therefore, is that matter, which has no self-knowledge, cannot be the cause of the material creation. The ultimate creator is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If matter were accepted as the original cause of creation, all the authorized scriptures in the world would be useless, For in every scripture, especially the Vedic scriptures like the Manusmriti, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is said to be the ultimate creator. The Manusmriti is considered the highest Vedic direction to humanity. So here it says Manusmriti. I think it's the same as the Manu Samhita. Normally we hear Manu Samhita. Must be the same. Manu is the giver of law to mankind, and in the Manusmriti it is clearly stated that before the creation, the entire universal space was darkness, without information and without variety, and was in a state of complete suspension like a dream. Everything was darkness. The Supreme Personality of Godhead then entered the universal space, and although he is invisible, he created the visible cosmic manifestation. In the material world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not manifested by his personal presence, but the presence of the cosmic manifestation in different varieties is the proof that everything has been created under his direction. He entered the universe with all creative potencies, and thus he removed the darkness of the unlimited space. So it's interesting, right? Because we hear of these 6 philosophical systems, right? And some of them, if not all of them, are atheistic, right? But actually, those are all conclusions based on interpretation, right? Because the scriptures themselves are they all recognize the presence of Atma, right? There's a lot of different ideas, right? A lot of different schools of thought that are presented in the Vedas, but they universally accept this point that there's Atma, right? That there is spirit behind everything. And these other, Vedic schools of thought, they're interpretations, basically. The form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described to be transcendental, very subtle, eternal, all-pervading, inconceivable, and therefore non-manifested to the material senses of the conditioned living being, living creature. He desired to expand himself into many living entities, and with such a desire, he first created a vast expanse of water within the universal space, and then impregnated that water with living entities. By that process of impregnation, a massive body appeared, blazing like 1,000 suns, and in that body was the first creative principle, Brahma, Lord Brahma. The great Parashar Rishi has also confirmed this in the Vishnu Purana. He says that the cosmic manifestation visible to us is produced from Lord Vishnu and sustained under his protection. He is the principal maintainer and destroyer of the universal form. This cosmic manifestation is one of the diverse energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As a spider secretes saliva and weaves a web by its own movements, but at the end winds the web within its body, so Lord Vishnu produces this cosmic manifestation from his transcendental body, and at the end winds it up within himself. All the great sages of the Vedic understanding have accepted that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original creator. It is sometimes claimed that the impersonal speculations of great philosophers are meant for the advancement of knowledge without religious ritualistic principles. But the religious ritualistic principles are actually meant for the advancement of spiritual knowledge. By performance of religious rituals, one ultimately reaches the supreme goal of knowledge by understanding that Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the cause of everything. It is clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita that even those who are advocates of knowledge only without any religious ritualistic processes, advance in knowledge after many, many lifetimes of speculation, and thus come to the conclusion that Vasudeva is the supreme cause of everything that be. It's interesting, isn't it? Because, the Lord has, and you see this in Bhagavad Gita, right, which is also being mentioned here. The Lord, there are lots of different paths to reach Him, right? So it's mentioning here, right? There are some schools of thought they denounce rituals, right, and they just fully focus on the cultivation of knowledge. Right? But if one is sincere, by both paths you can reach the Lord, right? Because the value of these rituals is that they promote, you could say, a spirit of surrender, right? And giving honor, right? Giving honor to the Lord, which ultimately can develop into love, right? Just like you could say, puja, worship of the deity, it can be a type of ritual, but ultimately it can turn into an expression of love, right? Because you're making that offering of surrender to the Lord, so it can. But then Baladevi Vibhushan is pointing out here that, and this is also described in Gita, right? If you're just focusing on jnana yoga, like just on cultivation of knowledge, then in that line also you will come to that conclusion. In your search into the plane of spirit, you will ultimately come to the super spirit, right? The supreme spirit, the Paramatma. And when you contact that Paramatma, naturally, if one has a sincere, clean heart, there will be an awakening of love, right? And that's described in the Chatur Shloki, right? That first verse of the Chatur Shloki in Bhagavad Gita, Ham Sarvasva Prabhavo Mata Sarvam Pravartate Ihi Ti Matva Bhajante Mam Buddha Bhava Samamvitaha, right? That I am the source of everything, right? I am the cause of everything. And one who realizes this, truly, they will come to serve me with love, right? So this is a conclusion that those on the path of Gyan, the Gyanis, they can come to that, right? They're researching into the world of spirit. And then when they actually touch upon that Supreme Spirit, how beautiful He is, then naturally you must be attracted to serve Him, love Him.
So you say Gyan, the path of Gyan can also develop into love?
Yes. Well, that's actually the line of development that's being presented in Bhagavad Gita, right? That, there's karma yoga, there's jnana yoga and bhakti yoga. And from jnana yoga, what it all depends upon is sincerity, right? It's just like we can think of how like those entering the Brahman, there are different classes of persons entering the Brahman, right? There's the Mayavadis who have this egoistic, this arrogant stance, right? That I am one, I am one with the Absolute, I am also God, right? And that's, if one maintains that, then they just have to come down again, because it's not reflecting reality. But then there are also Brahmavadis, right? Persons who are just innocently absorbed in the Brahman conception, you could say. And because that is a genuine aspect of the Absolute, right? The Brahman, the divine, what we see as the effulgence of Krishna, right? So then there are examples, right? Shukadeva Goswami, right? The four Kumaras, right? They were Brahmavadis, right? They're just appreciating the wonderful effulgence of the Lord. But when they made the personal connection, when they realized, there's a conscious source of this, then it's over, right? Then immediately they're going to that, right? Because they're sincere. They're not like holding up this wall of egoism, which is blocking their connection, right? So yes, from Gyan, and Shukadev and the four Kumars are a good example. They were Gyanis, right? They're one type there are different types of Gyanis, right? So they're one type of Gyanis. And from that position of Gyan, they're going to a position of Bhakti, right? So yes, it's interesting. There are different paths by which one can come to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
The Lord makes it very broad, right? And hooking people according to their inclinations, right?
You say different path, but then it's actually only Gyan and Bhakti. Gyan, Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. What other path would that be? I mean, exploitation is...
Well, I guess, you could say from the path of karma also. If one is, because like in the Varnashrama system, there's, well, I suppose there would be some development, right? From karma yoga, one could go to jnana yoga or bhakti yoga, right? Because in karma, if we see the Varnashrama system as an expression of karma yoga, right? Persons are just carrying out their ritualistic activities, and there's not much awareness, right? But from there, they could go to something deeper, right? And then, of course, there's also there's sukriti, right? So someone could also be absorbed in karma kanda, right? Just living their, selfish life in some type of regulated way. Karma yoga is special because karma yoga means there's an endeavor to be selfless, right? To give up selfishness. But then if someone's more in the karma kanda school, they're motivated by their selfish desires, right? But from that point also, they can render service, right? Unknowingly even, right? To a Vaishnava. And from there they could progress.
So you're saying karma yoga is then selflessness develops. And from karma kanda, there is a selfish motive?
Yeah, that's the difference, yeah. Karma kanda is based on increasing one's enjoyment in this world.
So there is no spiritual... because there is some confusion, I think, that we don't know that karma kanda is actually... There is no spiritual tendency involved.
Well, there is, but it's motivated by dharma, artha, kama, moksha.
And that's all selfish, actually.
Yes.
So... Yeah.
So like in Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna's in the beginning, he's giving karma yoga. And there's that one verse, I think in the second chapter or third chapter, it's one of the early chapters, he's like denouncing the whole karma kanda. And he's referring to the Vedas as that section of the Vedas, right? He's giving these flowery, temptation descriptions of worldly gain like that. And Krishna is promoting karma. Karma yoga is a good thing, a very good thing actually.
And kanda, what means kanda?
Kanda just means section, right? Karma kanda, it's a particular section of the Vedas which are promoting, religious, ritualistic practice, but for specific material attainments, right? You do this puja, you practice this ritual, chant this mantra, for gaining this, X, Y, and Z. It's like very specifically in that vein, So karma kanda isn't something that we're interested in, but karma yoga is helpful for us. It gives some good foundation, you could say, for spiritual life. Karma kanda, all you do is like a plus Krishna, and it's all good, right? Yes, selflessness, but then for Krishna. Right? You just add the for Krishna part, and it just works like all across the board. So it's like an easy transfer. So the real danger is actually Mayavad, right? And that's when our gurus also discuss that, right? Like from a karmi is not in even a karma kanda person. So karmi is not okay. So karmi probably would refer to a karma yogi, right? But someone just living their life in the spirit of bhukti, they're okay, because they can still do some seva. But so the real danger is actually the Mayavad conception, because that's like a type of spiritual suicide, and there's so much arrogance which is mixed up with that, right?
And I remember Srila Prabhupada Swami Maharaj, he said, like, yeah, we have that Mayavadi tendency in India very much, but here in the West, they don't have so much knowledge about that, to really deliberately make that choice, like, I'm called. But now,
it's a different situation now, yeah.
A lot.
It's very pervasive, yeah. And that was something that was like a big focus for our gurus, like how to defeat this Mayavad. We heard Gurudev mention how when Srila Swami Maharaj and Srila Sridhar Maharaj would meet, this would be one of their main topics of discussion. They could spend hours, on this topic. And of course, in the writings of our Vaishnava acharyas, they also put a lot of emphasis. I mean, like here, look at this really long purport, right? But yeah, you're right. It's become quite pervasive in the West. It's very insidious, and it's a little scary actually sometimes to see how insidious it is. It's sneaky, right? It's sneaky. Because it can take on different forms, like, it's all love, right? We're just love, right? There are a lot of things like that. Like, they have a very attractive, simplistic cover, and it hooks people. And they're not actually considering what are the implications and what's actually the philosophy behind that. They're just kind of like, very simplistically going along with it, not thinking deeper. And it's very attractive. Like, who can say no to that? Oh, we're all just love. We're all light.
We're all one.
Yeah, we're all one.
You are me, and me, I'm you.
Yeah. So it sounds great, right? It sounds great. Yeah. I was looking recently. Oh, because I was in Ojai, and Krishnamurti spent time there in Ojai, and there's like a whole, there's this one property which is kind of dedicated to him. It's right down the road from where I stay when I'm there. So I was like, what is the fuss about Krishnamurti? And I look him up, and I can't remember any of the exact phrases, but my conclusion, like he has a website, my conclusion was, in a very intelligent and attractive way, he's saying absolutely nothing. But in a very clever way, he's saying nothing. And people love him. Yeah.
Oh, I find it so like a bit sharp and dry and very arrogant, actually.
But many people are very attracted to that.
Yes.
It has an attraction.
Some intellectual.
Yeah. But if you really look into it, there's no real basis to it. There's no real systematic knowledge there. So it's a very sneaky conception. Oh, it's already almost 8:30. Okay, so maybe we will end here for today then. Jai Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki Jai, Shri Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami ki Jai. Who's going to sing?
Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namah.
Hari Haraya Namah Krishna Yadavaya Namah.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana. Radha Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunatha Jiva Gopala Bhakti Sarabuna Sai Gosai Kori Chadana Vandana Yaha Hoite Vignana Disha Purana Echai Gosai Jam Huitara Dasa Panchabada Pada Denu Da Panchagras Sajera Charana Sevi Bhakta Saneva Jana Me Jana Me Mohe Agirai Sai Gosai Radhe Braja Koi Loga Shri Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Prakash Ananda Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Jaya Man Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Dharma Kodiyasa Hari Nam Sankirtana Kori Madhutamala Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Hare
Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sita Dev Goswami Maharaj ki Jai. Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Sri Rupanu Bhakur Bhaka ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees ki Jai. All glories to the world devotees ki Jai. Vishaka Didi ki Jai.